We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather and which the Township of Severn operates is part of the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have been inhabiting and caring for this land. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Ojibwe or Chippewas peoples. This territory is by Lake Simcoe to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. Now sing O Canada, please.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Moment of reflection, please. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? None, no public meetings, no presentations. Would any member of council like to pull anything on the consent agenda? Councillor Jansen.
Point H22, please.
Thank you. Any others? Deputy Mayor Cox.
Sorry, I don't know. Okay. I need H 2.1, please.
Any others? Okay, Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. Motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items with the exception of items H 2.1 and H 2.2.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to H 3.1, Director of Finance, 2024 Treasurer's Statement, Remuneration. Sorry, Madam Clerk.
I believe that was covered under the consent agenda.
Oh, thank you.
Your worship.
Thank you. Reports from officials, J1, Planning Report number P25-009, Part Lock Control Exemption Bylaw, Greenwood Landing Development, Block 7980, and part of Block 78, Plan 51M-1227, 64 to 82 Brandon Avenue. Ms. Woodrow, morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Mayor Burkett. So council's quite familiar with these applications. We're about 2/3 of the way through the townhouse units in Greenwood Landing. So this is an application for another 2 blocks for part lot control. Each block contains 5 units for a total of 10 units in this case. The units are constructed to the point where the center line of the common wall can be surveyed and has been, as you can see in the report. That allows the bylaw to permit separately conveyable parcels of land, including a townhouse unit on each of those individual parcels. So this is something that is also on the bylaw section. The part lot control bylaw is further on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Cox?
I just wondered, did we approve the regular agenda? Okay.
Okay. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion, please?
The motion reads that planning report number P25-009 dated March 5th, 2025, with respect to a part lot control bylaw applications for the lands described as blocks 79, 80 and part of block 78, plan 51M1227 be received, and that the draft part lot control exemption bylaws included as attachment 5 and 6 to planning report P25-009 be brought forward immediately.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Minnings. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to J 2, Corporate Services Report number C25-003, Sole Source Procurement Asset Management Plan 2025 update. Is this Mr. Plunkett?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report in front of you is to sole source at the asset management plan for 2025. So the last one we did came to council, I believe, in January of 2021. We are required to do it every 5 years now, as per the legislation. And it also helps us get a better idea of how much our assets or how much of an infrastructure deficit we're in, and they will provide avenues to generate the revenues in order to cover those deficits in the future. It will go along well with our master servicing plan that Derek is doing. It goes well with the roads needs study, the DC studies, because it allows us to pick up the costs of all the infrastructure assets that we do have, plus all the other assets that we own and we need to maintain and replace over time. We did use them in the past. They are quite familiar with our plan now, and we do use their software to do our capital assets. So right now, at this point in time, it's quite useful to use them. I did reach out to a couple of other asset management plan providers, but they are actually fairly busy right now as well. So they didn't want to provide a quote. So we are at a point where we need to do the plan. And the biggest reason we need to do the plan is it's every piece of government funding we get now, we need to make sure our plan is updated. So if we don't continue to keep the asset management plan up to date, then we disqualify ourselves for all future provincial and federal grants.
Thank you, Andrew. So just the benefit for me and maybe other members of council, this is why councils that have a zero budget, or they try to have a zero budget, and that would be great to have that, but this is why we have an asset management plan, just to maybe explain to everyone how it may or may not affect that.
Certainly. Historically, municipalities didn't record assets. You replace them on a yearly basis. So you really didn't know, or most municipalities never tracked how much it was going to cost them, 20 years or 30 years into the future to replace assets. And, we've been hit with some fairly large core infrastructure asset replacements in the last several years. And the Director of Public Works can point out how much it costs to replace a bridge, and all of our bridges are coming due. And though they had 85-year lifespans to begin with, but now they're all coming due, and they're considerably more expensive than we probably could have imagined at first. And obviously the cost of infrastructure has increased dramatically over the last couple of years as well. So when we did our first asset management plan, we had suggested a 2.4% increase over and above whatever we chose to do from a municipal standpoint. My guess is that number is now low because they were basing it on historical inflation, and historical inflation certainly took a hit in the last couple of years. And if we don't do this, you're right. So lots of municipalities try to do a 0% because they didn't want to tax everybody, but they weren't taking into consideration the future replacement costs of these assets. And if you don't, then ultimately you're going to be in the position where you either can't replace those assets, so they deteriorate even faster, and potentially to the point where you're no longer able to use them.
Andrew, thank you. And a perfect example of that is the culvert on Wayman Line. Almost $3.5 million, which is something all of us struggled with, right? And I don't think our residents, and I still struggle with it as well. And that's just one of our huge culverts. When you look at all the bridges that are now coming due, and as Andrew has alluded to, culverts that are bridges that are 100 years old on roads that may only have 200 cars a day travel on it, but we can't close that road. And at some point, I think there's one bridge that's close to 100 years old, is it not, Darren? On one road that may see 50 cars a year, but you know, it's something that we need. And I never understood the asset management part, but I do now, and it's something that's needed. So thank you, Andrew. Any comments? Or Councillor Minnings?
I thank you through the chair. Andrew, so this grant that we received, it says under financial considerations, the amount was $652,000. Is this the first time we'll be using money from that 2025 grant for this?
If I can, through the mayor to member Minnings. It's not the first time we've used this. We do get this grant annually. So we do use it to.
I mean, this year in 2025.
Oh, sorry. In 2025, we have budgeted to use it for the asset management plan and one of the roads projects. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is.
Okay, thank you. And just a general comment. And I'm putting it under this agenda item because I think this is where it best fits, as well as the next agenda item, is I know you went sole sourcing, and rather than putting it out you know, as a vendor request, a public process. Anyway, my question is, from my research, the company that you're recommending we award it to, PSD Citywide, I researched from what I could do on the internet. It is a Canadian company as far as I'm concerned. And in light of the current climate, I would like council, and I'm putting a request forward for a future meeting, but I think also now I just want assurance from you, if you're able to provide it, that this is a fully Canadian company, so that, because I think that that's something that council should do to show allyship across whatever areas we can. So I just need you to confirm that for me if you're able to.
Certainly, I will certainly need to do some research to find out, but I can certainly look into that.
Thank you. So just in follow-up through the chair, if I may, then I would like to defer my vote on this, or our decision on this, until we have assurance. I think it's incumbent on us as a government to make sure that we're approving contracts, or we at least have the opportunity to have a discussion about approving contracts. Other municipalities have already made these kinds of public announcements or decisions. So I'm just, again, because it's here for approval, as far as I'm concerned, I would need that assurance before I could give it approval.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan.
Yes, relative to that, I've already made an inquiry with the CEO with regard to what we're going to do on Canadian buying policies. And she gave me what I thought was an adequate response that we're waiting to see. There's a lot of legal implications, and I agree with her. There are. There's a lot of nonsense that's coming out. There's a lot of misunderstandings about what is Canadian, what we can do. And we need to approach this in a prudent manner. And I would prefer to wait for the federal provincial leadership, things to come down, and before we get too pasted into what is Canadian, what isn't. There's a lot of stuff there's just a lot of ways things are labeled. There's a lot of there are times when it will be virtually impossible to do that, and I think reason has to prevail. That's what this country is about, and I think it should be more holistic an approach as opposed to a one contract scenario. And in this case, I see no value in delaying this contract.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Deputy Mayor Cox.
Through the chair to, I guess, Andrew. Andrew, if we already know that you've tried to contact other companies and they're all busy, but we have to have this done for 2026.
Sorry, if I can, through the mayor to member Cox, we do need to try and complete it for 2025 if we can. And it's the government funding is certainly, if you're in the process of completing it, they're pretty lenient, but But they do want us to continue to move forward. And we do need to know if we're going to update this every year, especially considering the impact inflation has had over the last couple of years. And I think it even makes sense, even if it wasn't needed before the end of 2025, because it does help with our long-term capital plan as well.
Okay, I think I'm okay with this because of the fact that we need to have this done now. I agree with Councillor Brennan that this is something we have to look at in the future, but for now, I worry that if we need looking at getting a grant for our water services, which they're out there, we need to be updated, or other municipalities will step in and we won't get our grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to Andrew. So my question was, how do you determine what's Canadian? Like, is it a Canadian address? Like, how far do you go? And I agree with the deputy mayor that we shouldn't dilly-dally here if it's going to affect potential grants down the road. But how would you, is that too simplistic, or is there more criteria?
Well, I'll through the mayor to Member Taylor. I don't exactly know but you can certainly check to see if the companies, you can look at their business registries to make sure that they're Canadian. I mean, they could be Canadian. That won't tell me who their shareholders are though. So that I've reached out to the company already, and then seeing if they'd get back to me to give me an answer. And actually they may have just done so, but.
Thank you. So I think Councillor McIntyre.
So
thank you.
if I can, Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
This is the response from the representative from the company. He says, we are fully Canadian and founded in London, Ontario in 2003 and owned by Matt Daw, who is 100% Canadian born and raised.
Councillor McIntyre.
Just took away my question, because if it's Canadian, we're going to run into this with the fire trucks and other things. So now that you have that response, Andrew, I'm in agreement. I think we should go forward with this proposal.
Councillor Minnies.
Thank you. And I'll just loop back. Thank you. That was exactly what I needed, is some assurance. And I think it is our responsibility as council to decide where taxpayers' money is being spent. So it's not about dilly-dallying and delaying it for a month. If you hadn't received that email during the meeting from that company, I don't think waiting a month would have been a deal breaker for this township, or it wouldn't have disadvantaged us. I think that we need to show that this is something that's important and that it's part of considerations when you are going outside of township for money to be spent. So thank you for doing that during the meeting. And now that I have that assurance from you, I'm able to vote. But without that, that was my point. Thank you.
Madam CAO.
Thank you. I definitely agree with Councillor Minnings that we need to be looking at Buy Canadian, a separate issue from what's on the table now. But just so council's aware, when Councillor Brennan asked me, I said we're watching the developments. So if you see all the motions that are coming through that municipalities are passing Buy Canadian, when you read them in depth, they're looking into it because there is legislation that prevents that right now, which is why we haven't come to council, because we're just watching the dominoes fall. And I would assume at some point the province or the feds will pass a legislation to allow to do that. To Councillor McIntyre's point, we will get in huge trouble with fire trucks. They don't make them in Canada. So there will be exceptions, but we just can't right now come out with a Buy Canadian, because I know Mr. Trump doesn't follow the laws, but we still do. So we are watching it very carefully and waiting for the dominoes to fall. And when it's figured out, we will bring that back to council.
Thank you. And just to follow up on my question, I appreciate your clarification of what you said to the CEO. There has been wording, and I know that I'm looking forward to the township bringing us some assurance through wording on that. And it's totally reasonable that if there isn't a service or a product available in this country, that we would go outside of Canada. So it's not an exclusive purchase or spending of money that I'm asking for. It's for that we have written consideration of what our order of priority and approvals are going forward. So I look forward to that coming back.
Okay, any further discussion? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
The motion reads that Corporate Services Report C 25-003 dated March 5th, 2025 regarding a sole source procurement asset management plan 2025 update be received. And that council approved the sole source procurement of the asset management plan 2025 update to PSD citywide at a cost of $64,390, including non-refundable HST, to be funded via the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund Grant OCIF.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to J3, Recreation Report number R25-007, Award of Consulting Design Services for the Administration Center Expansion and Upgrades. Good morning, Cole.
Good morning, through the mayor. I'm happy to bring a report forward on retaining an architectural firm for design of expansion and upgrades to the Administration Center. So as I'm sure you're aware, this building opened in 1990, further expanded in 2009, and is due for an expansion to keep up with the growth in population and staff to maintain service levels. So back at corporate committee in November 2023, I believe there were two options proposed to council. Upon conclusion of that meeting, it appeared that there was a consensus to proceed with an enhanced option B, which was an expansion out the back, but it sounded like appetite for a larger expansion than what was originally proposed in that space analysis. Option B was determined to be the least disruptive to daily operations in the building and had the least conflicts with existing infrastructure on the property. The scope of work includes expansion of the facility, upgrades to be compliant with AODA. We do anticipate the septic system will need to be expanded. We likely have room in the northeast quadrant of the property for an additional septic bed that would not be in conflict with the proposed expansion. We anticipate that our HVAC system will need upgraded. We have ventilation challenges in the building even today. More than likely, we will have a well that we will need to relocate for the drinking water system in the building. So we do plan on providing concepts and pricing for the accessibility upgrade standalone. So we will give you the scope and estimate just to complete the upgrades for accessibility and the larger number to complete the expansion and accessibility upgrades at the same time. They can be completed together as one big project. Or if the appetite for funding the entirety of the project isn't there, just the upgrades for accessibility could be completed. So we could pull that design out and tender that standalone if we needed to. It is more cost effective to design the accessibility improvements and the expansion of the building at the same time as one assignment. They are connected. So a condition assessment and the fine details of the existing facility needs to be completed to do both tasks. And it makes sense to design them together from a cost perspective. So late last year, we did issue an RFP with the scope I described. We received 4 proposals. We sat down and interviewed the top 2 ranked proponents to get their feedback and to confirm that they understood what we were trying to accomplish with this project. Martin Simmons Swears were evaluated as the top ranking proponent, and we do recommend award to them for this assignment. They've completed similar projects. I had a very positive reference check from the city of Kitchener for renovations at their administration office. If approved, retention of the consultant will allow us to get options for enhancements to the original option be completed. And we will bring that to council to confirm before we move into heavy detailed design. I guess I would add, based on the conversation in the last report, they are a privately held Canadian company who have been open in the Kitchener-Waterloo region since 1946. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Colt. Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair. I definitely agree that we need to do something, especially for accessibility. You look at this right here, and that is definitely not accessible. Our washrooms aren't accessible. We have taken every inch of this building and made it into offices. We have basically nothing left. Our washroom facilities, like there's 3 bathrooms well, one bathroom with two, one with one. And it's time that we did do something here. We're not asking to build a Taj Mahal. We're asking to do something that is going to fulfill the accessibility, and that is the most important thing at this time. Plus also just room for us even to have a place so the staff has someplace to eat. There's many things that people don't see when they see this building. We have utilized every space possible. We've asked for a utilization person to come in and they've done what they can. We have no more space. So I am in favor of this. I just want to see what comes forward. And I know we're a very frugal municipality, and I know we try to be very transparent, but I think this is something we really need to look at. And I know we have been putting money aside for this. So thank you very much, Colton. I look forward to seeing what we bring forward.
Thank you, Councillor Minnings.
Hi, thank you through the chair. Thank you, Cole, for confirming that. That's what I like to hear. My question is around the amount of what you're asking us for. So we did in November approve for this project $60,000, and that's what you brought forward to us to say this is what we'll need to put in the 2025 budget for this work, $60,000. So that's there. How has it grown to $345,000 today?
Gold.
Thank you, through the mayor. I do understand it appears like a large budget amendment. I believe that 60,000 was an original placeholder until we had the full scope of our RFP completed. We looked at a lot of the existing conditions around the building. We realized that our septic needs redone, our well will need relocated. There is a lot. I do apologize. We worked on that RFP late into the fall where we didn't have a chance to revise that number for budget. But that being said, this is a large design project. It is funded from the building reserve with 2.9 million in there today. And this project, similar to what we did for West Shore optimization, even if we had budgeted the amount, we still feel it important to bring back to council to get their feedback and attention.
Okay, thank you. And just one follow-up question. When we did the original, when two original design concepts for expanding this building were brought to council, there was already design work in there, was there not? Like, I remember seeing there's plans for it for two different pick A or pick B, et cetera. So we already spent money on design. I just need help understanding how we're spending another $350,000 on design, just the different nuances between that design work and the other, because we're probably spending a lot of money on design. And I understand as far as infrastructure, it's required. And certainly the requirements under the AODA for accessibility, that's something that we don't have a choice to do. So just if you can help me with the storyline of what we've already done with design and how this is different than what we've already approved for design.
Through the mayor, there was it was very preliminary and schematic design that was completed on the original options provided. They didn't get into heavy detailed design. They didn't get into detailed accessibility upgrades. It's definitely not inexpensive to retrofit existing buildings to be accessibility compliant. And this is going to get into the heavy details of the HVAC system in the building, the electrical. Definitely not inexpensive, but needs to be completed to get detailed design of a realistic expansion. Thank you.
Cole, thank you. Just to add, Cole, did we not do the original concepts internally? Was it not done by staff? We didn't reach out to Derek. Go ahead. And that's why there wasn't a cost peg to it.
Through the chair, if I can. So yeah, I have a bit of history on this because it was in our group at that time. As Colt notes, the previous job was more of a feasibility study. The project was awarded at just 70,000, and the consultant actually only advanced to 20,000 of that work. So the cost to date borne by the previous process of figuring out, what do we need? where would we expand? Some of the concept stuff, is a lower dollar value. In this particular project, we're looking for hard design services. So.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor to Colt. So looking back at the report, concept B, the estimate was $2 million. So my question, then I went back to our budget and we budgeted 5 million for so is it too early to guesstimate what it is, or do we have to get this, spend another 285,000 to get a more final version of, what the total price is going to be? But that $2 million, is that, where is that number and where is it now?
Through the mayor, I believe we can put a price to square foot in general for a building expansion. And I believe the director of recreation thought that our original value was a little low. And that was very preliminary plans of the expansion. It didn't take into account everything. I'd say we're likely in the range of, based on this price coming in at 295 for design, you can usually account on your design being about 10% of your final construction cost. I'd say we're looking at a project in the range of 3 to 5 million at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. Motion reads that Recreation Report R25-007 dated March 5th, 2025, with respect to award of design services for Administration Center expansion and upgrades be received. And further, that the proposal from Martin Simmons Swears Limited in the amount of $295,735 excluding HST plus a 15% contingency be accepted. And further, that the additional $285,300 required to complete the work be approved. And further, that the deficiency be funded from the building replacement reserve.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cox, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Let's see, where were we? 2.1, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yes, this has to do with the SEGBAY golf tournament. What I am suggesting is if we want to put a team in, because we put in teams last year and people canceled and it was not good. So if you want to golf, in my opinion, if we want to golf in this, we pay. And if we cancel, we find somebody to cover our costs. This is something I paid before and then we didn't. And now I think it's the fact that this is a golf tournament we're going in. It's for the hospital. It's our decision and I'm willing to pay for my spot in it. And I think that's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Any further comments? Councillor Taylor.
So Severn has been there from the beginning. And to me, it's a great display of showing our council out in other municipalities. It's unfortunate that everyone from council was going to go. We couldn't go, but through an arrangement through the CAO, we got staff to go. So at the same time, we got our staff to go out and represent ourselves proudly. And I think this is a great economic development scheme to show off our township. And if you remember the opening remarks from Mr. Waring, he acknowledged Severn for being there from the beginning. So I think it's money well spent and we should continue the practice that we've done in the past.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I'm not saying we don't go in it. I'm just saying I'm going to be honest. I don't want to use taxpayers' money to go golf. I'm willing to pay for mine. And if I can't go, I'll make sure that I get my money for someone else to go. I just feel that the way the society is, and we're still supporting it. And in the past, I paid my own way. And this is what I want. And this is what I would like to do for everyone. But if I do this, I'm paying my way and we're still going to be involved.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah. When we raise money for the physician recruitment committee, they have a fundraiser for $125. I pay that out of my own pocket if I'm going to go. I don't expect the taxpayer to pay for that. I'd like to think the taxpayer donates other ways for our physician recruitment funds. I lean towards, first of all, the current thing isn't too bad. If you cancel, I know I had to cancel last year, and fortunately someone took my place. They have whatever you do, a lottery or whatever, and that's all fine. But this is an expensive proposition. I would suggest that we could make a donation to the hospital and not have all the costs associated with the dinners and the thing. And the hospital, we could probably, and I don't know the analysis of this, it's not my job to do that, but I'll bet we can give the hospital more money and save the taxpayer money in the process. And yeah, we want to golf. I agree with the deputy mayor. That should be, like, that's a day of fun. And if we really are committed to the hospital, for God's sakes, we can pay for that ourselves.
Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, through the chair. I have a tendency to agree with Councillor Taylor. This is a huge public relations move on the township's part. I think immediately upon arrival there, when the conversation started, they called the mayor up to say, you know, thank you for being here from the outset. And, you know, the public relations that we get out of that, because it shows that our township, if we need to, are in support of the hospital by what we're doing at the tournament. And if we need to go to that Georgian Bay Hospital from our township, people are aware that we've contributed by way of the tournament. We buy tickets to the various draws and so on. One of our employees, Aaron, who he bought tickets. He spent $250, but he won the $9,000 trip to Dominican, where one of our roads guys. So I think it's a marvelous public relations move on our part. I wouldn't be averse to going the other way, but this one I think is pretty important. When the mayor said thank you for having us and nice kind words and stuff, he said it from his heart. We're here from the beginning, and I think we should remain participating in it in the same fashion that we're doing.
Councillor Minnings.
Hi, thank you. I do see both sides of this. However, I do agree with Member McIntyre and Member Taylor. We do give money, taxpayers' dollars, to other areas. So Councillor Brennan, your example of the physician recruitment gala that just was held recently, we gave that committee $29,000 of taxpayers' money through a different stream when they came and asked. And we go to the Couchiching Conservancy annual general meetings, and we take part in all of that they put forward for us. So I do agree. I've been to one of their golf tournaments since I took on council, and last year also. I missed last year. I would like to think that everybody donates to charity and everybody gives money and sees there are so many needs out there in the communities. We can't give to every charity, but I do think that in light that I don't want to see a precedent set that we're not supporting things. And sometimes that means the cost is that counselors are there. The year I went, I think I had to be there at 7:30 or 8 in the morning and left. It was after 9 p.m. at night. It was a full day, and it was about networking. It was about making connections with the hospital staff. I did hear your speech. You were called upon to actually speak, and I think that's an honor. They are our close partners, and we do use their services across the township. So I think it's a small price to pay in light of some of the other things that we're already supporting.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I think we should go to it. I just think we should pay for it. And I'd like to put that motion forward, please. After you have a chance and Jansen has a chance.
Councillor Jansen.
Thank you. I know that the Southeastern Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce has held this event for, as the flyer says, 12 years now, and I know they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Georgian Bay Hospital. I would just like to say that there are people in our community that use that hospital. that live in Severn and go to the Georgian Bay Hospital. They don't just go into Soldiers Memorial. I do see the value in this event. I also haven't been able to attend the past 2 years due to work conflicts. But I think that it is such an important initiative. And as I said, the one-day event raises thousands and thousands of dollars for the Georgian Bay Hospital, and our residents use this hospital. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Yes, I don't know if I can modify it here. Yes, I agree. We want to go to this thing. And I think the deputy mayor has made it clear what she's talking about in that respect. I would like to modify the original amendment by suggesting that we look at I'm not saying we don't support the hospital. I'm saying we do it in a financially effective way. And I am sure that a donation made by this township, we will surely get the mayor to be able to make a speech at this event. It isn't about the way we're doing it. And as far as networking goes, we sit in the same carts for the whole day. Who the hell? We're talking to ourselves. Give it a rest. Even dinner is spent together. So the networking, a little bit on the weak side.
Would you like to speak, Madam CEO? And then I want to say something.
I would thank you through the chair. The deputy mayor has called a motion, so I just was going to offer an alternative, perhaps. The challenge for me is the 2 teams, so I wondered if you cut back to 1, because there are 7-member councils, so I automatically have to send 1 staff, and then invariably life gets busy and members can't go. So I think last year I sent 3 or 4. That's difficult for me. I really don't like to put my staff on the golf course. And it was lovely that Aaron won, but then that's the first thing I saw in the paper. And I recognized that he bought his tickets, but that's not what the taxpayer says. They say Severn staff were golfing today and they won this trip. So it's awkward for me. I would prefer staff not golf on taxpayer money. So maybe it's a 1 team.
So thank you. If I may, before, thank you for that. You took my thunder. And I see both sides of it. So what if we did this? What if we had 4 passes that were paid for by the Township of Severn? And if all 7 of us want to go, I'm happy to pay. The deputy mayor is happy to pay, and council. I'm okay with it. So that way we're not saying no. Is that okay with everyone? Councillor Mennings.
Thank you. I just have one question. Can you tell me how much it costs the township to pay for the township to have 2 teams? Like, what are we talking about? Nobody's talked about are we talking about $1,000 or $10,000?
Councillor Jansen.
I'm not aware of the specific cost.
And I support your motion.
Okay. Cox.
I'm not understanding this. My only thing I wanted to do was to pay for it. I want to go and have everybody to golf. I just don't want taxpayers to pay for me to golf. So I can still pay for my own golf. But never mind.
I think what we're struggling with is we donate to the Aurelia Hospital. And as Councillor Jansen has said, our residents use the Georgian Bay. So this is a donation to the doctor recruitment. Thank you. Sorry. So, we all use both sides, and I don't see a problem with, go ahead.
Just jump in, it goes not 100% to the Georgian Bay Hospital. It has gone to Wendat. It's gone to the food bank in Coldwater. But it's spread out. They're a very good group, spreading their profits around the area. So I support what you said.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
Yeah, but no one's saying anything against them. All I'm saying is we pay. We still go, but we pay.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I just want to point out the physician recruitment money is to recruit critical services to the people of Severn. There is a cost for trying to get doctors here. We lose about 14 doctors a year. They're trying to bring in about $14 a year. We get direct service. And believe you me, we're paying a fraction of the cost that other communities like Kingston are paying for our $29,000. This is not just us throwing some money at a committee. This committee works like demons for your health.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the cost to register one foursome last year was $960.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor Cox, are you okay with 4 being paid for by the township? Okay, well then we can have 2 motions then. We'll see where one goes. The Deputy Mayor had one on the floor first.
I thought
And
you
then we'll
said
go with the next one.
4 paid by us.
Yeah, 4 paid by the township.
Okay.
And there's 3 of us that if we so choose to go, we can pay out of our pockets, which is fine. Or we can donate even more to the hospital, which is fine.
I'd like a recorded vote on it, please.
Okay, so the first motion was called for by the deputy mayor. And that motion will be that the council of the township of Severn continue to attend the SEGBAY golf tournament with council members paying for their own attendance.
Thank you.
Okay, so recorded vote requested by Deputy Mayor Cox. I need a mover and a seconder.
Mayor Cox, second by Councillor McIntyre.
Okay. So Deputy Mayor Cox, for or against?
For.
Mayor Burkett, for or against?
Against?
Member Taylor, for or against?
No.
Okay, Councillor Jansen, for or against?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, for or against? Okay, Councillor Minnings, for or against?
Against.
Councillor McIntyre, for or against?
No.
Motion is lost. Okay, the second motion that was put forward was that the council of the township of Severn continue to attend the SEGBAY golf tournament with one foursome paid for by the township.
Seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? 1, 2,
Don't-
3.
1, 2,
Two.
3.
Oh, 4. We have 4. Okay, we have 4. Thank you.
Motion's carried.
Great. Moving on to. Oh, sorry. Where is it now? 2.2 correspondence and petition from Stephanie Kennedy and residents Coldwater overnight parking. I think, Madam Clerk, you wanted. Oh, Member Jansen, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure, thank you. I'm sure you've had a chance to review the documents that were included in the attachment. Members of the Coldwater community have been able to park in the 2 parking lots there without fear of being ticketed for many, many years. And due to heavy snowfall, I understand the township had concerns being able to clear these parking lots, and they went about, I guess, placing a warning on people's vehicles and then moving forward the next night with ticketing. In speaking to some of the downtown residents, they've received multiple tickets, some 2, some 4 tickets. And these people are members of our community. They have nowhere else to park because they live on the river side of the street in downtown Coldwater, where there is no parking. So what they're looking for is a solution. I know that in our parking bylaw in Schedule E, there are 2 parking lots that are already excluded from overnight parking. They are both in Severn Falls and available to cottage residents that come in to use their cottages. What we're asking, or what is being asked, is that 1 Fire Hall Lane and 11 Michael Ann Drive be added to Schedule E so that parking is exempt. There's a permitted exemption of parking overnight for vehicles in the 2 parking lots that are specified here. 1 Fire Hall Lane and 1 11 Michael Ann Drive.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, did you want to shed some history on this, please?
I can do my best. So to Councillor Jensen's point, downtown parking has been for tenants and in the general lots permitted for quite a number of years. The restriction on overnight parking actually came into effect in 2022 when the last full review of the parking bylaw was completed. So we have had, and we have not done much in the way of overnight enforcement since then. If we have a problematic trailer, we've tried to kind of deal with it directly, but overall, we haven't enforced the bylaw, especially with respect to that provision. We have had an extraordinary winter. And so the ability to allow folks to park in those overnight lots when we need to clear snow, our road patrollers issued tickets. So, and that was completely in accordance with our bylaw. One thing I do want to note is that not everyone who received those tickets were tenants. We had folks from all over the community that had camper vans in there and trailers and other things as well. So we weren't just dealing with cars for tenants. We were dealing with other things as well that also had to be addressed. And we didn't know the extent of that as well until we started issuing the tickets and heard from the individuals. Staff, before this request came forward, were already in preliminary discussions to come to council to see if council would be interested in the parking permit program. We do not at this point really believe that full exemptions to parking overnight in the only 2 downtown lots in Coldwater is a path forward. We prefer to report back to council with potential solutions. So with that, there were 33 tickets issued in grand total. So bear in mind that not all of those were tenants. They were a variety of different vehicle owners. And again, some were camper trailers, some were recreational trailers, and other vehicles. So with that, it's for council to give staff direction.
You, Councillor Minnings.
Hi, thank you. And through the chair. Thank you to the resident who brought the letter forward. I don't know if you're in attendance there. Okay, thank you. Awareness is always so important of what's going on and what residents' experiences are. I really feel that that's our prime reason for being here as council, to know what's working, what's not working, and to see if there are ways where we can either answer questions or make amendments or changes. But this was something that I wasn't aware of, and I read through the package carefully. I disagree with the staff recommendation of continuing forward with the tickets, and I understand some people may have already. Sorry.
I just want to put a clarification in that staff have not issued tickets in the last little bit. We issued a notice of violation, which is more like a warning sheet to a couple commercial trucks that were parking in Michael Land Drive. We're talking full-size commercial vehicles. And one trailer that had moved from the fire hall lane parking lot over to the rink, to Michael Land Drive. We issued some notice of violations, but we have not issued tickets in a while.
Thank you. Who issued the tickets?
The bulk of the tickets that were issued back a month or so ago were done by our road patrollers, who operate in the early morning hours when the snowplow operators are trying to get out and running.
When you say our road patrollers, could you define what our is?
So the township hires, and perhaps the director of public works can jump in here. We appoint 2 road patrollers every year. Council passed the bylaw last fall to appoint them as municipal law enforcement officers for this exact purpose.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to understand what I thought I heard initially when the mayor asked you to speak, was that tickets were issued, but you said they're not our tickets. So meaning you just said township hired someone to do that. Like, are these not township tickets? That's my question.
No, I'll just give you some clarity. So there was a report that came forward, and I don't know which month, but Derek always has night patrolmen that are patrolling our roads in case there is a problem. They actually plow as well. So the parking lots, well, but you're saying you're not agreeing, but you're not. But here's what's happened. So it's our patrollers that are going to plow the parking lots that issued the tickets. They have the right to do that because they have a job to clean those parking lots.
Thank you. And it's not that I'm asking a question, and I was asking it of the directors. So somebody is put tickets in, otherwise we wouldn't have had this letter, and we wouldn't have had the response that some people paid and some people didn't pay when it came on the agenda. So if it's not I was asking, what does is this, did the township issue those tickets, and did the people who paid their tickets pay it to the township? That's a yes or no.
Who would like to,
I
Madam
can,
Clerk?
I can start, and perhaps the Director of Public Works can jump in here. I say our road patrollers because the township operates as a team. So, and they are appointed as the township's road patrollers with their seasonal contract with the township. So, if it's like, I would call it our bylaw department as well, and our customer care department. So apologies if there's some language pieces there. But that would be why I use the word "our," is that they are appointed by council, and so they are representing the municipality.
Okay, so I didn't think I got to my hard question yet, but so the money was paid to the township. Is that correct? Correct. I'm seeing a nod, so that's correct. Okay. Coldwater, as we know, and as I've come to appreciate, is our biggest flagship, one of our two main centers. It has a shopping district, etc. And I understand that people live above the stores. I also understand that people like me who visit there visit. I also understand that there's is it a Legion or some kind of a place where people can drink and go play bingo, and there's alcohol served, and they may not want to drive home at night, and there may be occasion to leave cars parked there. I also heard that there may be bigger vehicles. I don't know if there's trailers or people who you know, I'm thinking of drive gravel trucks or semi-trailers that might use that. I've been there. It's a huge parking area in, you know, not really a nice square. There's lots of areas back there for people to park. What I'm saying is that council does have the ability, regardless of a bylaw in place, but the fact that the bylaw hasn't been enforced, regardless of the amount of snow we've had, the bylaw hasn't been enforced. There isn't, from what I'm reading, signage. I'm suggesting that council does look at a way that people can park overnight. And I don't know if there's enough parking overnight. It sounds from what I've read that the amount of parking isn't the issue, but that clearly defined areas. And I think it's incumbent on this township to provide overnight parking in a town, in an area where there are people who don't all live in what I'm going to say traditional houses or apartment buildings that have a driveway or a parking lot specific for that address. So I would like to see a report come back to us. I would like to see those tickets that were issued. I did ask before the meeting, I asked staff what we're talking about again, because it's all about money, whether it's money for the individuals who got tickets or money for the township as far as a revenue source. We're looking at under $3,000 in total at the high end of tickets. And when I say at the high end, that's if people didn't pay within 7 days. We're not talking about a lot of money. I say we push that back. People were caught by surprise. And if it was one person caught by surprise, that's one thing. But when we have a lot of people who were issued those tickets all singing out of the same songbook saying, but I've always parked there. And there's days where I don't go in my car, you know, 3 or 4 days in a row. So how would I know if somebody puts something on my windshield? So I am again saying enforcement may have within their rights to ticket whoever it was, on contract or on staff, doesn't really matter. I'm saying that in this case, that these tickets be forgiven and that we need to increase our signage. We need to come up with some recommendations on what we're communicating as where and whether people can park overnight, what size of vehicle, or if they can park trailers, etc. But we need to really listen to the citizens who've taken the time to come forward. $70 is a lot of money. I think that we're not going to lose revenue as a township by rescinding those. And I would like to see council do what we absolutely is within our power and say, no, they've brought forward a good point, and we need to make sure that they can park careful, like where they're intended to park and whether it's a permit system or something else, but as of what's in front of us today, shouldn't have been paying those. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I have been on this council for a long time. Anyway, I had always been told that the tenants for the riverside, we would tell them to park at the community center. I was never, and it doesn't matter if it's community center or not, because at that time, that was the only parking lot we had. So that's where they parked. And we haven't had any issues, but then again, we haven't had snow almost every other day since Christmas. We used to get snow and then you get a break and then you would, the parking lot at Fire Hall Lane, one of the rationales of putting that parking lot in was for shop owners and business owners to park and for people who come to our town to shop if there's not anything on the main street. I don't have a problem with the tenants parking. I think we need to have a report back with maybe a permit system, an area for them to park. I think that's only fair. My problem is people openly admitted that they use that parking lot as a storage place. And that is why I can't say we need to let it be open all night, all day, every day. The ones out in Severn Falls, there's not any place near it that people shop or need to find a parking spot to come to our town and park and shop. I'm also afraid that if somebody pulls in there in a Winnebago and we give it wide open, we have no way to get them out. They could stay there for months if they wanted to. So I believe that this has opened up a door, which probably is open because of the weather, but I think it's also opened a door to say, we are expanding. Our Greenwood Landing and a lot of new buildings that are being built now are on very small lots. People can come in and they may have 3 vehicles and I don't want to move vehicles in the winter. I'll just go store one over there or I'll put my trailer over there. And that fact scares me that if we leave this wide open, those are the abusers. It's the tenants that we have. And in my opinion, I know there's people who are going to say, well, that's not your responsibility. In my opinion, it is our responsibility because it's been a grandfathered thing. We have told people that that's where they can park if they're in that apartment. And I think the clerk will probably come up with something with staff on a permit system, who can park, how they're going to do it. We may also have a person who can't park at the community center parking lot if that's where we decide we're going to make the permit area because of accessibility. We can work around that and ensure that anybody who needs access and can't walk that far will be able to do it. That's part of the rules of society now, AOAD or AOADA. The other one I wanted to say, I don't know that ticket
Hi, Dan. I think that they're having a bit of troubles again.
I was wondering if it was me.
No, not you. I think David's working on it. I just messaged Lori, so just hang tight.
Okay, yeah, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I don't know. Hang tight.
Are we still on the live stream? Do you think that people can see?
I'm not sure. I don't see council, so I think we just have to, I think it's just the council chambers that's frozen. So you're okay. Just hang tight for a few minutes.
No problem. Lori is saying that internet issues again. Hang on.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
We will hang tight.
Just testing the audio to make sure we're back up.
I can hear you, David.
Thank you. Are you able to hear us in the council chamber?
Dan, what was the last thing you heard?
Shoot. The last thing I took a note about, the clerk will come up with the permit system. You can't park, so it's our responsibility that the clerk come up with the permit system. You can't park at the community center. I think that was the last line I heard.
Was it the deputy mayor you heard speak? Was it?
I think it was. Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll move now to Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, through the mayor, to recap, yeah, I was on council along with the deputy mayor when we built the parking lot on Fire Hall Lane, and the idea was get the traffic off Main Street. So we 100% there. But one of the biggest problems is, and people came to me to complain about when they got a ticket, the only signage at Fire Hall Lane said free parking. So one would assume free parking is free parking. It wasn't until weeks later that the overnight parking sign went up. So council thing not advertising to the people that this is a major change here. So that's I agree with Councillor Minnings that somehow people that were ticketed before that overnight sign went up should be reimbursed for their ticket. And I look forward to a staff report coming up with some kind of a permit system that at least we could use the parking lot on Fire Hall Lane to work rather than the big parking lot at the community center. So I look forward to something coming back from staff, but just to reiterate, there is no sign saying you can't park overnight.
Hey, Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm kind of on the back foot because a lot of people have said similar things that I had questioned about. How many parking spaces are we talking about here between the two parking facilities? Can
Mr.
somebody
Burke.
answer that? Yeah, okay, I'll just carry on. I mean, parking's been allowed there for decades, and we have a responsibility, I feel, to find some kind of parking that will allow the tenants, whether it's permits or not. And we have 57 people on a petition. That's very concerning to me that we're not going to, I know we're going to come to a conclusion after a staff report, but it seems to me that was there a time, can anybody from maybe in the chambers tell us that when the tickets were issued, and then is there notices up and notices down, orange signs, not signs? Is there anybody can answer anything that could we ask through the chair, could we ask someone in the audience to tell us about the events that happened as they went? We cannot.
Let Mr.
Okay,
Burke.
how about we ask
Mr. Burke.
Mr. Burke?
So through the chair, responding to the first question, the Coldwater Arena has an estimated 104 spaces. Now they're not predetermined, they're not marked. It's a granular pad, so that may be plus or minus quite a bit. The Joseph Street, or what we call the Fire Hall Lane parking lot, that's 38. So 38 spaces, not quite a lot. And the remaining sections, like there's lots of different ones there, but our general parking, capacity township wide is actually only 500 spaces, right? So township wide, our parking, is limited for sure. In terms of the signage, our team did not have the signage out there at the time of ticketing, right? We can confirm that. We saw a deficit in the communications, and we promptly put even temporary because we can't drive posts in the ground at this time of year. But we knew that was a big, issue of not communicating clearly the intent. Going forward, why we did this, at the end of the day, we're trying to clean a parking lot of winter control or snow. And with the amount of vehicles that were stored in there, some in perpetuity, right? Like some were semi-abandoned multiple nights on end, and our patrollers trying to service these lots were made aware of the bylaw that we have and use the tools that they had to make sure they could clean this lot. So.
Okay, Councillor Brennan.
I'll just do a follow-up if you don't, through the chair. it seems to me that we're going to need a staff report, and possibly the permitting is the best way to alleviate this headache. We have a number of parking spaces and only so many tenants that require parking. Where do they go if we don't provide them parking? I mean, if you're living above a store and you're fixed income and you have a little car, you have to have somewhere to park it. In the old days when they built the town, there was nowhere to park. You left your horse in the back. We've got cars now, and we need to provide parking for these people, whether it's by permit or some other solution that our crack staff will come up with. I think we need a staff report, and we can't leave these people in the dark. So it should be, I think, as soon as possible, and possibly suspend the tickets now because we're coming into better weather until such time as the staff report comes back and gives us some clarity what the people are going to do for a parking space.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the old days you speak of, some of them may be coming back at us the new days with the lack of requirements for parking in some of the new developments that are now allowed in this province of Ontario. So parking will be an issue. I just want to say one thing. Interfering in enforcement issues is not a smart move by council. I favor the report. I'm sure there will be recommendations for us to approve to resolve these issues. It is obviously serious, but fettering the report is not appropriate.
Councillor Jansen. Okay.
Thank you. I'm wondering, I heard that there's 33 tickets issued, and I understand that people received multiple tickets. Do we know how many actual license plates were ticketed from the data? Was it 14 license plates? Was it 17?
Madam Clerk.
I'm afraid I don't have that information off the top of my head. I can tell you that 33 tickets were issued. 7 were paid within the early period, which is when it's $70 versus 85. 85 is when the court surcharge fee gets applied. To the earlier questions about withdrawing it. So we would require a motion, but it still will require our staff to attend court and formally withdraw those tickets. We can't just pull them. Any that haven't been paid have already been put over to POA for processing. So our staff will have to attend court and formally withdraw those tickets.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
So, sorry, just a follow up on that. If it was only a limited number of vehicles, as I said, because people got multiple tickets, really, I think the process of going through permitting and a staff report to figure out this permitting process and then issuing permits to either the landlords or the tenants is another bureaucratic process that I don't think we need. I believe that exempting the 2 parking lots from the overnight parking bylaw would be the solution that we need right now, and it would fix this issue immediately and for the long term.
Madam CEO.
Council can certainly consider that. That is your prerogative. I would just caution that while this is a new issue because of the snow, it could grow throughout the township. Like we could have trailers parking in the West Shore parking lot because their lots are too small. So I think if you're fixing a tenant problem, that's one thing. But if you're keen to allow all sorts of unfettered I think you're going to have some challenges. You get one tent trailer and the next thing you know, you have an encampment and you've got some issues.
So I think based on what I'm hearing, the staff report is what we need to make a wholesome decision. And the only reason I'm saying this is in Ward 5, I know of an area now that has parking that people have been parking illegally on township property. So hopefully that will also, it'll be township wide, because what I heard from the Director of Public Works that we have 500 parking spots. So this is a slippery slope. I agree that we need to grandfather some of these things, but I think we need to see that report so that we as a council can make that wholesome decision. Councillor Minnings. Or Cox was first.
Sorry, through the chair, I did forget one little part I had here. When there is an incident of a person who's at a dance or a party at the community center and they decide they shouldn't be driving home, which is an intelligent thing to do. And I know this probably won't happen, and it only this would happen. It's once again, it's this snow that really wanked it, because we haven't had any issues at all. But I'm wondering maybe if there is a system of we can give to the people at the Legion, we could give to the bars. Here's a small ticket, put it in your windshield. I left my vehicle here because I decided to get a ride home with somebody, or if they wrote a note. I just think that that's another thing we have to cover, because I've heard rumblings about that issue also. And I do agree with the CAO. I think we've already run into it, and I can defer to the Ward 1 councillor, is that the one lots out in Severn Falls, we've had to go in and haul trailers out. We've had to get people to go in and get them to move, because what happens is they just go there, and then when they're derelict, they just go off and think, well, I'll just leave this here till next year when I come back, or I want to do this and that. I worry about people abusing the overnight, like doing it. No one is bothering anybody in the summer. No one's bothering anybody any other time. It was this massive storm which has affected every single area in all of Ontario. I mean, Aurelia's are buying new equipment. Everybody was hit with this one. And I'm sorry that people got tickets. I don't know if we can do anything. I'd like to know what the repercussions are. If we forgive these tickets, what will happen in the future when someone comes back and says to me, well, I didn't see a sign there, and I got a ticket. You did it for these people, you're going to do it for me. And not every place is signed, because I may be wrong through to the clerk. There are places you can't park, but there doesn't have to be signage.
Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. So anywhere where there is no parking, there should be some signage. That said, it can be, say, from, if it was at like a corner of a road allowance where we've got access to the lake, it could be 4 driveways down with a directional arrow. And if so, it's anywhere from that driveway to the other point. We don't sign at every driveway all the way along. So it could be that there's a stretch that's no parking. So the sign's up, but it doesn't have to be like 10 signs to cover 10 driveways. It's one sign to cover a stretch from the furthest to the one point. So and in general terms, that's how that's operated. With directional arrows. You'll see that in school zones as well, where there's arrows on the signs that you say, you know, it's out from here, or it's one side or the other. And that's quite standard with parking signage. With respect to the tickets, like I said, we're going to have to attend court if that's council's motion that's passed to withdraw them. And then the other part of that question is do the 7 people who paid early get their money refunded? So because that's already been paid directly to the township. So
supplemental. All these issues we're talking about, can they come back to us with some written so we can see it and clarify all these things so that we make a good decision and not a knee jerk, and we're aware of all the pros and cons of them? Thank you.
I think that's where we're at. So we've all got concerns. I think the clerk's been writing down everything that we'd like to see in the staff report. And I think what we've done now is cars can park there. They will not be ticketed. Am I correct?
correct. And we haven't issued tickets in a bit.
Okay, so this has to come back to council. If council wants to see a report as far as ticketing and whether we refund our residents, that'll be part of the report. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Through you. And if I can, just by process point, so to Councillor Jansen's piece on the exemption for the 2 lots, that can still be part of the final report to council for a final decision on whether or not they want to do that, whether it's the parking permit program or the other. If staff can get the time to focus on this, we can try and have a report back in March on it, which would be before an amending bylaw to exempt the 2 lots could come to council anyways, which wouldn't be until the April council meeting. So from a process perspective, staff should have the opportunity, if we can get the time, to bring something back to council before that amending bylaw would even be considered. So
Councillor Minnings.
Thank you, through the chair. So 3 things that I'd like to see in either one motion or 3 separate ones. In summary from me, we heard from the director of roads that we have approximately 500 parking spots in the township. So I would like a motion or the report back that signage and communication at each of at the sites, whatever they look like, and I know they're all slightly different, is posted. So whatever that is, that it's posted, because I don't think that there is signage at all of those areas that house those 500 parking spots. So that's the first thing. The second thing, we have the last several meetings, and today it's on one of our bylaws for approval. As we're going through the good neighbor bylaws, we started with the noise bylaw and the parking bylaw. I don't recall, and I didn't look again, but I don't recall anything in our parking bylaw that's specific to lots, parking in lots. And I'm wondering if, while we have that bylaw open for amendment, that we shouldn't pull that bylaw again and bring that back forward with whatever staff reports coming, because I see it is a parking bylaw and it doesn't speak specifically to that. My third is that regarding rescinding the 33 tickets that were issued in this instance, I 100% believe that they should be rescinded. I understand their staff time, but we've also spent staff time and the costs of sending staff to all kinds of other hearings. But that's bylaw's job. They go to hearings and whatever it costs to do that. So I believe it was something that did not demonstrate good customer service. It was very enforcement heavy at the time. Again, it's just about relieving these 33 tickets from these people, and the community has clearly spoken, and that is within our power. It's not going to disadvantage us. So that's what staff do. And if that's the cost of doing business, then that's exactly what I think that should happen.
Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding that if you have a ticket and you attend court and the person who issued the ticket does not attend court, the judge would just say there's no evidence again. All the defendant would have to say is, I was issued this ticket wrongly. If there's no one there to say, oh no, then there would be no conviction. I mean, am I wrong in all this? I mean, ask the clerk. If we could keep the staff at home and these people go and take their ticket to court and say, I was issued this wrong, there's nobody to say any reason why they got the ticket. So can you maybe make that clear to me,
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So through your worship, briefs can be submitted to court, and it's quite regular to do so when, say, those contract staff are no longer around. So, and that is quite typical. So say in Wasaga Beach, lots of parking tickets are issued through the summer, and by the time they go to court, the summer staff are long gone because they're back at school. So briefs are submitted to support to the Crown Attorney's Office, or to, in our case, we use the Barrie Prosecution's Office for our prosecutions to attend and support them. Rather than staff not attend or submit the briefs, if council's direction is that they want the tickets withdrawn, staff would attend at the start of the court date and formally withdraw the tickets. It is the proper process to be undertaken.
Clerk, for all the tickets that were issued, would our staff have to attend the 33 of them, or can they do them all at once?
It depends on how the court schedules them. So if the court schedules them for 10 on this day and 5 on this day, then staff would have to attend each of those days. And in that case, that part is done at the start of the day, so they don't have to typically sit through most of it. But it depends on the court scheduling. So.
Yeah. You're going to first of all, this is an incredible breach. If you're going to start telling bylaw officers what to do, that's justice out the window. That's that's January 6th crap in the States. You need to respect the bylaw situation. All we need is a report right now. There are people that we already have heard here today that have been abusing parking there. What, we give everybody a free ticket? No, I want to hear a report, an unfettered report that says, here's what we should do to solve the problem. And I think we're way out of league telling anyone how that report should be prepared. I mean, why ask for a report if you're going to demand function A, B, and C to be your way? It's inappropriate. It's out of line. Let's wait for the report and make a decision in a transparent and fair manner.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I'm sorry, I just got a little few texts that I got cut off before just as I was saying handicap. And I just want to clarify the handicap, because if we do a permit area and we have a person who has a handicap parking permit of their own, I think we should at least look at that to be someplace that is close to where they live instead, because they may not be able to walk that far. That's all I want to say. And I don't think we have one in the Joseph Street parking lot, one. That's all I want to say. And I've already said the rest, but I believe that a report is the way to go. We could ramble about this 67 times and keep asking questions and getting answers. And I think if we have it clarified in front of us, we can make some really good decisions.
Councillor Jansen have the last word. Go ahead, Councillor Jansen. Did you want to speak?
I think I've already put forward my position, and it's what I feel is the easiest decision to make right at this time, and then we just move forward from there with the exemption of the 2 parking lots.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, did you, and that'll be the final.
Yeah, just in summary about our bylaw people, there was no sign saying it said free parking. So I just rest my case right there. So hopefully that'll be in the report.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
Thank you. So I'm going to try and follow the bouncing ball. So the first motion would be that the correspondence and petition from Stephanie Kennedy and residents regarding overnight parking be received, and that staff report back regarding a parking permit program for downtown Coldwater tenants.
Okay. Just a sec. Now, Madam Clerk, are we doing 3 separate motions?
The one with respect to the tickets will be a standalone motion.
Okay. So we're going to do the motion that you just read first.
And I'm still trying to figure out a motion.
Councillor
Deal with the
Jansen.
50 parking spots rather than just direction to include in the staff reports.
Yeah, just a question on that. So earlier you said that, or somebody said, could we have information about the exemption of those parking lots included in the staff report, the pros and the cons of exempting the 2 parking lots?
Yes, absolutely. We will include that in the staff report.
Okay, and on visitor parking, could that also be included? So if somebody needed a visitor spot, they would have a permit that they could provide to somebody to put in their vehicle?
That's for you guys.
That would also be part of the report?
As far as a visitor parking lot, one parking lot for, no, I'm not understanding what you're looking for.
I think, sorry.
Deputy
I live in a building that's on the river side of Coldwater, downtown Coldwater, and I have a visitor over for the night. Where do they park?
Councillor Minnings.
Thank you. So from the motion that you read, Clerk, I don't agree with the word tenant at the very end of it. So
It's
if
a
we,
draft.
okay, so I'm just saying that was a motion that you read. I think that would alleviate whether it's my house guest who I've invited up for the weekend or an overnight or whatever. Doesn't matter if there's a process going forward. I don't think it's overnight parking should be limited to tenants. Thank you.
I think what we're doing here is we need the staff report, and then we can have that wholesome discussion we can change the motion that's there. We can always change it as a council. But we can change it when the staff report, we're just going to go around in circles here. We're just going around and around, and we're not accomplishing anything. I think what we need to do is have those motions read, and then have we need that staff report back to see where we go with it.
Thank you. I don't know why you're speaking to me. I was just saying that the word tenant should come out of the motion that's on the table.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I think it should stay because that's what the petition came and that's what we're speaking to. And parts of it are the other, but if we get a clear report back, and if we get that report back and we want to add more, we want to take more out, we can, but we need something in writing so we can sit here and see it in front of us so we know where we're going.
Clerk.
Thank you. So the directional part of the motion was in that staff report back regarding a parking parking permit program for downtown Coldwater. Now, the original one it included for downtown Coldwater tenants. Did council want to keep that restriction in there? Or do you want me just to generic? Because this is what the report will be. If the motion stands that staff report back regarding just a generic parking permit program for downtown Coldwater, then staff will speak to the options in the report regarding tenants or general. But if the motion initially restricts it down to tenants, then we're not going to talk to general. So,
if I may, Madam Clerk, here's the issue. This is a grandfathered parking permit process that was done years ago only because of no parking for the apartments and the tenants that were on the main street of Coldwater. Are we going to open this up so that anyone visiting our township in any one of our 500 parking lots are able to park as they want for free? This is the slippery slope that we're going. As our municipalities are growing, we're going to run into more problems. So without that staff report, we need to sit as a council, read what staff has come back with. We can make changes to it. They take direction from us.
Sure.
Go ahead, Councillor Minnie.
Thank you. So, yeah, just to clarify, there should be, we need parking designated. We need parking to be in Coldwater for everybody. Live there, work there, guests there, it doesn't matter. So I'm not saying that it's open for free. That word never came out of my mouth. I'm saying that by removing the word tenant, we have a staff report that covers all the different avenues, and then staff can recommend whether there's a different process for. Okay, that's you're shaking your head. Yes, thank you.
Madam Clerk.
thank you. So if we remove the word tenant, then staff's report that comes back will include options to deal with tenancies versus free, otherwise parking.
Okay.
Staff are otherwise going to also have to look at how we balance that with events happening in the community, which are increasing in volume, and the fact that this could have implications for one or other large communities that has an apartment building right on its main street, which would be Washego. So where there is the similar situation. So the other part the staff report on is whether or not there will be fees proposed. And whether or not there still might be the time where we have to give notice to say you have to have your cars out of the lot, so we can do snow removal in the future. That is quite normal in apartment buildings where folks have permitted parking, where they're given a 2-day notice warning to say that we're doing parking removal. You must remove your car or your car will be towed. And I know that because I have folks that live all over the GTA and Barrie and such, and that is exactly how they're operated by apartment corporations. So all those various pieces staff will put into a staff report and bring back to you, including to Councillor Jansen's point, the pros and cons with respect to exempting the parking lots in general.
Councillor Jansen.
Thank you. I know what we're talking about here is overnight ticketing. I'm wondering if that could be that the correspondence be received and that the staff report on an overnight parking permit program for downtown Coldwater.
Deputy Mayor Cox.
I think if we're going to talk about parking, there's no point in just saying Coldwater. If you want to open it up and we want to talk about parking, we need to make sure that we're talking about it all over. We got West Shore in there with 50-foot, 45-foot lots, people who can't park. If this is going to become an issue because we're growing, we need to look at the whole parking issue and then add in what we need. And I think it's just an open thing that came. And as the mayor said, once it comes, we can ask for more, we can pick what we want, we can look at it. But I think we just need to get this done so we can look at it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to call the vote.
Call the vote, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so I will reread the motion.
Thank you.
So the motion reads that the correspondence and petition from Stephanie Kennedy and residents regarding overnight parking be received, and that staff report back regarding a parking permit program.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Deputy Mayor Cox. All in favor? That's carried.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
The second motion is that council directs staff to formally withdraw all tickets issued for overnight parking in Coldwater that were issued for the Fire Hall Lane parking lot and 11 Michael Ann Drive, and that staff refund those that have already been paid.
Mover, Deputy Mayor Cox.
Through the chair, I can't vote to say we're going to give them out for everybody, because there were people there who had their vehicles there storing them. They vocally said it on Facebook page. I do this every winter. I take my vehicle and I store it because I don't like moving my vehicles. I don't like moving my vehicles either. But this is a public parking lot. So I can't say that I am going to say okay to somebody who abused it. So I'm sorry, I can't vote in favor of that.
Councillor Minings.
Thank you. I'd like to have a recorded vote and I would like to call the motion as you read it. Thank you.
Before we do that, Madam Clerk, do we know how many are these?
You can't.
We,
I can't. I'm sorry, your worship. Members called the vote, so the discussion's over.
oh, good call, Councillor Minings.
Vote having been called, I need a mover and a seconder.
Councillor Minings, second by Councillor Taylor.
Okay, recorded vote requested by member Minnings. Yep. So motion reads that council directs staff to formally withdraw all tickets issued for overnight parking in Coldwater that were issued for the Fire Hall Lane parking lot and 11 Michael Land Drive, and that staff refund those that have already been paid. Recorded vote requested by Councillor Minnings. Councillor Minnings, for or against?
4.
Okay, Councillor McIntyre, for or against?
4.
Okay, Mayor Burkett, for or against?
I want to sit on the fence. Do I have to vote?
If you abstain, it's deemed to be negative. You can abstain. It'll be recorded as such, but it'll be deemed to be negative.
I'm going to say no.
Okay, Councillor Taylor, for or against?
Yes.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Cox?
Against.
Councillor Brennan? Councillor Jansen?
Yes. 4.
Motion's carried 4-3. You have to use your microphone.
Deputy Mayor.
I just have a question. There were people who got tickets that weren't even in those parking lots and they were parking illegally. Are they all going to get it off too?
Well, I struggle with, can I speak, Madam Clerk? I struggle with this because of the derelict people that we had, like our residents, absolutely. The tenants that I'm in favor of giving their money back, but the ones that were parking there with their trailers and their trucks illegally.
The vote was called.
All right.
The vote was called. Through you, your worship, the vote was called. That said, member Minnings, with respect to your other item on the 500 spots and signage posted, did you want us just to include that as direction with the report? Or
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
We'll take that as direction then.
So no motion for that, Madam Clerk? Okay, so moving on to new business. Oh, announcements. Any announcements? Okay, closed session, none, general bylaws. Now, member Minnings, Councillor Minnings, did you want to do something with the parking bylaw? Go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. I would like to hold the parking bylaw because depending on what staff come to us as far as recommendations around parking, the bylaw is open now for amendment. It might, I would argue that we could consider any new information coming. It's all about strengthening the parking bylaw so that it's clear and it works for the township. So yes, I would like that pulled.
So that would be bylaw 2025-03. So with council's concurrence, that will get pulled until the discussion happens.
Do we need a motion for that, Madam Clerk?
No, staff can take that as direction at this point.
Okay, so the rest of the motions, Madam Clerk?
Motion reads that bylaws number 2025-04 and 2025-11 through 2025-17 being or hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, second by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? That's carried. Confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Motion reads that bylaw number 2025-18 being is hereby read a first, second, third time and finally passed.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Minnings. All in favor? That's carried. And adjournment. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cox, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone.